pulled up for you. All right.
So we just wanted to start this all off by giving you an overview of what we are about and what we truly believe. And at the core of our hearts of Epicenter, and I believe Array as well, is we believe in relationships. We truly believe that we are so much better together as educators. And so if we can share ideas, none of us has all of the answers, but all of us can come up with many of the answers together. If we do three things, if we ask for help from each other, if we are open to receiving help from each other, and if we give each other help, we are truly connecting, and that is what we hope to do today. So we care very much for our students who are facing a very different school year. And we care about their hearts. We want them to be well. We care about their minds. We want them to grow. We want them to still learn. We also care about our teachers. We care about their hearts because they're moving into a situation that we want them to be confident about and happy as well. We care about their minds. We want them to have the tools they need to feel comfortable moving forward and to be effective in their profession. In order to do this, we would like to give them three things. We would like to share, as we learn them, the very best practices so they have the knowledge of what to do in the very best ways, whether that is running a school building, teaching, or teaching online. We want to put in their hands the very best tools. So we want to vet the things that we feel will help them the most, be it curriculum, online platforms, or apps. Finally, we want to build our educators up and fill their hearts, because the approach and attitude they take toward this school year will be very telling and will serve our students greatly. So that is the overview and the hope of our presentation as we move forward. We hope you enjoy. Please write your comments or questions in the chat box. You are as much a part of this presentation as we are.
All right, so we're going to get into some of kind of the weeds of how, and just start swapping ideas on how we could be successful during this pandemic and getting our students either back to school or in the virtual world continuing to engage them. So let's jump right in. The first thing, and we believe one reason why Epicenter is such a perfect partnership with Array Global is because exactly what Gemma talked about, we kind of have the same heart for educators and for students. And we really just want schools to be very open. And one thing that we offer during our training sessions is a complete focus back to our mission statements and making sure that those are very concise and succinct. So to use my own mission statement for my school as an example, our mission statement is Pinecrest Academy unites the community to prepare students for college and career. We all are able to recite that mission statement, and I'm able to point my parents back to that mission statement in everything that we do. So when I recently gave a presentation to our parents on how we are going to be reopening the school this upcoming year, the very first slide that I used was our mission statement. Because when you can elicit back the hearts of the parents of why they chose your school to begin with, it gets everybody back on board. And so our mission says that we are going to unite. And so I ask them, I plead with them, let's unite together for our students. Let's bring this all back together. So I would just encourage you, start your whole thing around your mission statement, bring everything back to why you're here together as educators. Now, who do you need to consider in your reopening plan? So this is where we're going to kind of go through from more of an administrator side, how to reopen schools and some ideas for how to do that. And then we'll get into tools for educators. So these are all examples that I'm pulling from my very own experience as a principal. So at my school, for instance, we know we have to consider our 170 staff members, and we have roughly 3,000 parents in my community, and we have 2,000 students. And together, we are one united community. When I showed them that slide, that was again my effort to pull at their heartstrings of the mission statement. We need to be one as we go through this plan. And so when you add this all up, we're over 5,000 individuals that we need to consider for this reopening plan. And what's interesting when you start to really break down your community and through surveys is everybody has a different opinion. And I'm sure in this phone call or this presentation, many of you have different opinions. Some of you feel like it's not the right time to go back full time. Let's keep them virtual. Depending on your country's response, your community's response, maybe the cases of the virus that you have within your community, their ability to respond to that from the medical field within your communities. So we're all going to be at different levels. We also have the families that are like, get our kids back in school right now, because for a multitude of reasons. Either they feel like it's safe enough for them to go back to school, the school can properly handle the cleanliness levels and the social distancing that may be required, or they truly need school to help so that they can go back to work. And so there's so many reasons why a family would be like, get them back now. And your plan has to kind of marry all of that together, because we don't represent one side or the other. We represent what's going to be best for our students and, frankly, the guidelines within our governments that we need to follow. And so that's where you're going to have to find balance within your individual countries and communities to make the best plan that follows the guidelines and takes to heart what your community's needs are.
Jessica, could I just add that slide? You know, the one with the 3 circles on it. It's important to understand that there are some issues that will involve the students and the staff, some issues that will involve the students and the parents, some issues that will involve the staff and the parents, and those have to be looked at separately. But there are many issues that involve all 3 of those groups. And we have to understand that not everything can be handled with all 3 groups. And so I just wanted to point that out in your slide.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. And there is overlap with each of those. You're right. And as we move forward into types of reopening plans. So and this is, again, when Gemma talked about we are better together, this is where we encourage you even right now to start now. Start in the chats on your Facebook. I know we have people watching live on Facebook. We have Zoom. Start by adding some of your ideas to the mix. These are just some ideas that we are working with in schools that we personally work with as well. So start sharing those ideas. For us, it kind of falls within a spectrum of what we're considering. So the first one, full virtual. Now, underneath full virtual comes many other considerations. Are you able to provide computer work for the students? Do you need to do packets because maybe there's connectivity issues? And what types of interactions are you going to be able to provide if the students are full virtual? So as an example, in our school, back in April and March, when we first had to go full virtual on it, like flipped overnight, we got literally a 12-hour notice to go virtual. We weren't quite set up for this. None of us got into education to go be virtual, principals and instructors. Those are different options in our community. But now we were all in this world. And so we did a lot of computer work, but for a lot of our families who did not have connectivity and had no warning to get that, we worked with some packets and things like that to make sure that those students could still be growing. The next phase, which is the phase that we're able to better implement in the upcoming fall, is what we call remote live instruction. So this is going to be for school communities that have the ability to allow their students to pipe right into a classroom. Now, when a lot of people think about remote live instruction, they start racking up the dollar signs in their heads, like, oh, you need these specialized cameras that follow you around the classroom and these big screen TVs so you can see all the students who are at home. I want to just challenge you that you can start very simple. As long as you have a computer that can face the teacher and the board, that's all you need to start getting the students piped right into your classroom. So the idea is that students who do not get to attend school, whether you're hybrid or whether you're full virtual, the students can pipe right into live instruction. One of the challenges that we faced back in the spring is that our students had video access to their teachers. They were able to go back and see, video lessons or tools that they could use. But really the parents still had to do a lot of the teaching because they didn't have that live interaction with their teacher. And this is something that we look to improve this fall. So now the teachers will have the students on the screen and they will be going through their lesson. They will set norms for how students can ask questions, whether it be in the chat for maybe the older ones, or they have more frequent pauses for the students who are online to ask those questions and checks for understanding. And so keep it simple. It doesn't have to cost a lot. It can just be a simple computer screen flipped towards the teacher so that they can still have that live instruction. The other thing that I struggled with when first looking at this plan was I was worried about the childcare issues. If our students are going to daycares or to the neighborhood home, are they really going to be able to live into their classrooms? And in fact, when I started speaking to many of our parents, I flipped my opinion on this matter because many parents actually find it much easier when their child is being engaged by the teacher to actually get their own work done as well. So whether you're taking your child to your office because your employer recognizes there's a need for childcare and your child's going to be with you, or if you're at home with your child, actually allowing them to remote into their teacher's classroom is going to keep them more engaged than you having to try to teach all of these concepts. Hybrid can be any combination of this. There's a multitude of different plans that involve hybrid. Are you going to go 2 days on and 3 days virtual, 2 days in person and 3 days virtual, 1 week on, 1 week virtual, half your students AM, half your students PM? The reason you would consider a hybrid model is if your government puts restrictions on, such as 6 feet social distancing within the classroom, or you can only have 50% max capacity within your classrooms. These are guidelines that we are currently facing. So our school is going to be doing a hybrid model. And then with the hybrid model, when the students are virtual, what are they doing? Are they doing the packets or are they remoting in? And so for our school, I'll get into kind of what the student schedule looks like. And then last would be your full in-person, which many of your schools, maybe you're permitted to do that. Or maybe your enrollment is such that you can still have all of your students and still socially distance them within the classrooms. So we know right now the classrooms look different, and we're going to get into that as well. But it's whatever combination of these, and the spectrum just moves according to the guidelines. I'll go into some of the strengths of certain plans as well. Here's an example of exactly what my students would be going through this next year as we move into the fall under our current restrictions. And I do understand some of your work weeks start on Sunday, so you would just replace those days there. But this is what it looks like. We have 3 cohorts at our school, so this is one example. So cohort A attends school in person. That's 50% of my students come on Monday and Tuesday. The other 50% cohort B attend on Thursday and Friday. When they are at home on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday, they will get to pipe right into their teacher's classroom. The benefit of this is that they get core instruction every single day, every one of those days. The lessons move on. You're not putting a teacher on repeat Monday, Tuesday, and then they teach the same lessons on Thursday and Friday. The students can pipe in. Now, we have connectivity issues. I have about 40% of my school that are low-income families. We have had to check out computers to our students. So I understand that those things exist. We have really great partners with local internet companies that are helping families get very, very reduced cost internet, or in some cases free internet. So reaching out to community resources may be a great place as well. And then we are also writing for grants that allow students to have hotspots if they need those hotspots, or devices that have internet built into them that only allow them to go onto your school's websites or your school's approved list so that their parents aren't using all your internet as well. So there's definitely tools to look into. And the third cohort are our full virtual students. Now, the benefit of full virtual, again, is they get to remote right into their teacher's classroom. The beauty of a plan like this, where you have this marriage between in-person instruction and hybrid or remote live learning instruction, is at any time in that plan, if we have to shut our school down or fully reopen, they all know their teacher, they go right to the same teacher, or they all go home, but they still continue to remote in at the times that they're used to remoting in. So this is one example. Again, I understand many schools might have connectivity. We actually saw that in a lot of your feedback that you put as you signed up for this, that there's connectivity issues and things like that. So that's where your school will just have to look at your resources to determine, can we get connectivity into most of their hands? Do we need to record our lessons and put them on some other platform for the students, or give some students packets? The goal, though, is to get as many students growing as possible. So, you know, even if you have to do packets for the few who really can't get connectivity, let's keep the rest growing as fast as we can, and then get the resources into their hands. On Wednesday, we do deep cleaning, and that's when we do a lot of our online tools as well. A lot of questions came up as well in your feedback about support services. So here's an example, and I always tell families, especially, you know, here in America, and then I know a lot of countries have different rules regarding how you address special education and things of that nature. For us, the plans are individual. So I keep telling families, like, we're not going to come out and have this like one size fits all plan for special education. Let's look at the needs of our students. It's an individual plan for them. So like in my particular school, we have 375 parents, 260 students who have specialized plans, and 25 educators who are dedicated to those students. So it's a lot of moving parts and a lot of individual plans. So our advice would be just looking through each of those plans and how can you best serve them. For us, some of those students may be coming in live instruction all 4 of those days because that's fair for them. And what's fair for one may not be fair for all. And you know what? It's all about getting the most support that you can, even if it doesn't seem fair on the surface. Let's get them in there if we can. So go through those plans, adjust minutes, meet their minutes virtually if you need to. Other specialized services would be RTI, which for here is response to intervention, are students with low data who may not have a specialized plan in place, as well as your gifted students, students who are testing very high. For students receiving RTI services, again, you could do those in small group instruction while they're in school, following whatever your protocols are for safety, or do them virtually through Zoom. You can grab a small group of students who all have a similar cognitive ability into a Zoom session and continue their online instruction. And students who receive GATE, you could do the same. Another idea that we had was our GATE programs were all in Google Classroom, so all students in GATE were assigned to a second class, which was their GATE class, and they had extension activities right within their Google Classroom. So it's just about finding the balance and utilizing your resources. And if students don't have connectivity, those are the ones you're going to want to target in person if you're able to. If they have connectivity, perhaps meet their minutes online for those services. I want to go through some examples of safety protocols. Now, again, I fully recognize that many of your schools will have different rules across the world depending on where your country is at. So these are examples of safety protocols that we're following under our current government guidelines. So at our school, we have to have 50% or less students in each one of our classrooms. We can have no more than 50 students in our larger areas. So you can't even use the large areas and spread them out 6 feet and exceed 50. You have to stay under 50. And we have to maintain a 6-foot social distancing. So under these guidelines, I'm showing this again as an example of a way that you can communicate with your parents. You will have access to these slides after this presentation. And so if you want to utilize them and just change them to fit what fits within your guidelines, then feel free to. So for us, we are requiring students to wear masks once they reach a certain grade level per our government. We're a uniform school. I know many of your schools have school uniforms as well. And so definitely think about what you're going to allow to be seen on their face. For us, it's solid colors only. And then we're going to be doing temperature checks. We put the onus on the parents, check their temperature before they come to school, but we know parents will medicate their students and send them to school anyway. And so we definitely do let them know right up front we're going to be doing temperature checks along throughout the day as well. A few other safety protocols we follow: they will eat lunch in their classrooms. They will utilize hand sanitizer each time they're entering buildings and classrooms, and then that we are still giving them breaks throughout the day. But we actually had to think through those breaks because they're not allowed to mix cohorts. So this second grade class is not allowed to play with this grade 2 class. And so we had to really think about how we zone out our outdoor spaces as well to give them the opportunity to have those brain breaks. This is right from a presentation that I offered to my families. This is literally what my classrooms look like as we speak. So we've already converted our entire school into socially distanced classrooms. And so we have it, and it's taped out on the floor, and they have their furniture in their zones. So we have, we're only able to fit 15 students in any classroom because of the size of our classes. And sorry, I got ahead on a slide. Okay, and so we have them socially distanced 6 feet apart. This is really difficult for our kindergarten teachers, our KG teachers. Some of them came to school the other day and like with tears in their eyes because it was the first time they had seen their classroom in this type of environment. Our KG teachers and grade 1 teachers, they've got that heart, they want their kids bundled up on their carpets beside them and, just warm and fuzzy, and it's difficult. And so that goes back to what Gemma was talking about with like, let's get to their hearts and we need to just acknowledge that it's going to be hard. And so they've got their desk positioned in one corner of the box, and they have like an X on the floor in the other corner so that they can kind of come down from their desk and sit on the floor, but they have to sit socially distant. So this is hard. And as school leaders, you're going to want to be there for them and make sure that you're kind of addressing the emotional needs of our teachers so that when their students come in, they're ready to present it in the most positive light possible, because it's difficult. This is what some of our secondary classes look like science labs and things like that, to provide that social distancing. So again, these are just diagrams that if you're in a similar situation, feel free to utilize these in order to communicate with your families. Other things to remember. So as we went through our reopening plans, there's things that you don't want to take for granted or forget to kind of mention. And I'm sure I've missed some. So please put them in the chat if you have things that you're like, oh, we also are having to address X, Y, and Z. Put them in the chat so that we can think about those too and maybe get better communication out to our community. What are your rules for volunteers? So for now, we're not allowing volunteers in the building, and that's heartbreaking because our community is amazing at helping us in our buildings. Additional health office space so you can separate students who may be sick from students who are well. Additional care for students who are not in school. Do you have the space for it? So for instance, our teachers like art, PE, technology, STEM, all of these types of teachers are going to be pushing into the students' classrooms during this time instead of having students come to their classroom. So we're converting their classrooms into full day care for our staff children so that my staff know that their children have a safe place to go during this time so they can focus on their jobs. And any spaces that we have available remaining, we're going to sell to parents who need that full day care for their children. So do you have space like that you could offer seats for that to help out your own staff and potentially your community? How are you going to address before and after school care? Do you have to keep the students in cohorts? In the past, if they left them after school, they paid a fee. We never really knew who was leaving them. It was a drop-in process and it was all fine and we just charged them their fee. And now we have to have these strict cohorts where they have to sign up in advance. So what are you doing for before and after school care? School calendars and holidays. Back where I showed you that Wednesday we're doing school-wide initiatives, are you going to shift if there's the first day of the week is off or the last day of the week is off? Are you shifting those days or not? You need to kind of think through that. What about students in high school? Some of us have high schools where our students leave partway through the day to go to a job opportunity, or they go to college classes, things of this nature, and make sure that you're addressing their needs. Because in the past, at my school, when they're waiting to go to college and it's not quite time for them to leave, we had landing spaces for them. Well, now a lot of those landing spaces we can't use because of the cross-contamination. And so what are we doing with those students? Dress code when they're on camera. What is your dress code going to be? Are you requiring school uniforms? Extracurricular activities, are you allowing clubs and sports? Lockers, if you have lockers at your school, are you allowing them? Are you spacing them out? These are all things that we've had to work through. So don't forget about those items as you're thinking about your reopening.
Hey, Jessica and Gemma, there's been a lot of questions about primary schools, primary grades, and how do we best engage those students? And also, how do we engage students in PE and music and art? Do you want to address that?
Yeah, those are great questions. We're definitely going to get into a section on engagement specifically, because I noticed that many of your questions leading into this as you signed up for the workshop definitely were surrounded by engagement. So we're going to get into that section next. And of course, if you still want more ideas, go ahead and shoot that back into the chat and we'll do our best to address it. So let's kind of go through communication, and then we're going to get into more of the educator side. Because right now we're more in like the administrator side. So we'll do communication and then it goes into engagement. So this is another thing that parents want to know about. We're finding it in all schools. What are you going to do if you are back at school and there's a case, right? So you need to think through what are the appropriate measures that you have to take as a school if one of your students or teachers test positive and you're in that hybrid or in-person model. So this is the way we were able to communicate. So if we have a case breakout, parents, you need to inform us, keep us in the loop. For us, we then reach directly out to our local health officials, and they help give guidance to us. They'll help with the contact tracing, and they'll help us inform us whether or not we need to close down that classroom, that wing of the school, or perhaps even that entire building. So for us, it's going right to the officials. And then we also follow our national guidelines. And lastly, we just commit to our parents that we are open to communicating to the fullest extent. Really, parents just want that reassurance that if something happens, you're going to keep me informed. And so make sure you offer that reassurance, because that's what they're most nervous about right now. Are you going to tell me? Are you going to tell me if somebody has a case in my class? So how are you going to address that? And let your parents know up front how you're going to address that. So here we go. How to keep your students engaged. Now, okay, I think we have the annotation notes turned on, so maybe if you don't mind turning those off, Dr. Jacob. How are we going to keep our students engaged? Now, we know during this time, this is going to be a marriage between online tools and our teachers. Your teachers are your most powerful tool, because that's why we all got into education, because we have a heart for our students. But we know as educators right now, we also are going to have to start to learn more engaging tools, online tools, so that whether they're in our classroom live or at home, they have the tools that they need. So we're going to introduce you today to some of those tools, and we're also going to share a resource that has many additional tools with it. So let's dive in. Dr. Jacob, would you like to speak to this slide?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different digital learning tools out there that schools have been utilizing, and we just wanted to go over, some of the main ones that schools are really jumping into. I think Google Classroom is probably by far the most popular. I think they're saying about 80% of schools are really, really utilizing Google Classroom. It's really easy to use. It's straightforward. It's seamless. It works very well with students at all sorts of different levels. Moodle is very, very similar. Students can get on and chat. You can put videos up. You can grade students that way and just have some good interactions that way. And Blackboard is also something very, very similar. So I'd encourage you to look at those. Google Classroom for some countries is free for schools. And so it's also integrates not just with their email and their calendar, but all their other apps that they have. So I would encourage you to check those out. Again, this is just a way to manage the educational portal and programs that you're getting set up. So there's so many different tools, but these are three of probably the most popular ones. Would you think, Jessica and Gemma?
Yes, those are definitely some of the most popular, and we'll definitely get into some of the remote tools for live instruction as well. But those are definitely great tools. I know
I forgot to mention Microsoft too. Someone mentioned in the chat, Microsoft also has some great programs out there that people can utilize.
Great. I know a lot of your questions surrounded primary. So just keeping in mind that a lot of these tools that we're going to go through are meant to engage primary as well and keep it very all in one place for them. So I'll show you a couple tools along the way, but keep in mind that, again, as many things as you can pull for primary, that is the student, I think we can all agree that the students in primary right now are wired differently than we were. And so many of these students can actually handle more than we give them credit for. So we have a very high success rate across our sister schools who are using remote live instruction and engaging those students live on their platforms. These students are used to screen time. Many of them, when they are not in school, are usually on some sort of device. And so they can handle it. So we're gonna try to organize them. I'll show you some tools for organizing their digital tools. And then if you could bring up to the commitment levels, because that's something I think educators need to come to.
Absolutely. I think as teachers talk, and I've seen a little bit of this in the chat as well, just about, you know, how are we going to get this high level of engagement, and how are we going to pull in not only our primary students, but our students who just, you know, are going to tune out just a little bit. We can certainly pull out all the stops, and our amazing teachers will, you know, work their hearts out to have those relationships and connect with students and bring students in for a quick activity together, hold them accountable for those moments, especially online. There is just a reality as well that we need to acknowledge in this moment, that if they are virtual, you know, the commitment of parents, the commitment of the student just is that much higher. And we just need to acknowledge what it is that we can do, and move forward with what we can do, and let go of the things that are frustrating us that we can't do.
Yeah, it's definitely all about getting the resources into their hands, and then they have to decide from there. And that goes right back to your mission statement and eliciting that response from your parents from the beginning. Many of you are school choice, meaning many of your schools are private, and we definitely have national schools on here as well, and public schools on here, but parents, for the most part, are choosing your school for a reason. And I tell them that right up front. You chose this school, and you know we are not the school. We've never been the school that gives, you know, everybody wins an award. You have to work for it, because we're growing humans. And so you've got to get committed to be our partners in this. We're going to give you everything we can, but parents, you have to be a partner in this with us. And so really eliciting that emotional response from parents too, that let's all do this together and keep them growing, and celebrate that growth. Every bit of that growth along the way keeps your whole community motivated. Let's talk about a few more tools.
Okay, the next is Fayday Virtual. This is an online school program. It's one of our partner companies that we have, and it provides support services for ages kindergarten all the way up to grade 12. And many of you have commented about how do you get primary grade students doing some virtual work? Well, this is a great program. It's very interactive. It has videos. You can hear someone talking in English so they can practice their English. They have little fun little quizzes, and it's more of a gamification type learning process for the students. And so we've had a lot of good success with this program, because I know there are many comments in the comment chat box right now about how do we get the primary grades engaged. This is one great way. Another way that I think Jessica's and Gemma have been talking about is recording yourselves. In my schools, my kindergarten and first grade teachers, they would record themselves. And I would have students from kindergarten all the way up to grade 6 that would go in and watch those over and over and over and over again throughout the day. And it was very, very effective because the teachers would make it very, very engaging. And that's what you see in Fayday, the virtual program that we have. You can learn more about it on our website, but it's another option that you guys have that you can use to engage students from kindergarten all the way up to grade 12.
You know, I've heard a lot of comments. I've seen a lot of comments about parents not accepting distance education, students don't respond well to distance education and so forth. And I recognize all of that. However, if our governments tell us what we can and what we can't do, we in some cases don't have a choice. And so I think what we're hearing today is all the possibilities that we can do, and I think we make the best of the situation that we can, even though we might not like it and the parents might not like it, and it might not be the best way. Our positive attitude in working with the students and the parents will help a lot in making this more successful. I believe in distance education. I don't believe it's the end all of everything, but for some people it is. And for many people, it will just be difficult for them to understand and to work with because they don't like it. But in many cases, we don't have a choice. We do have a choice on how we're going to respond. And that's why we're talking positively about some things that we can do in this response.
Thank you so much for pointing that out. And I'll give the perfect example utilizing this slide. So at our school, we use iReady as one of our external assessments. And a lot of schools in the spring, because you test 3 times a year, and a lot of schools forfeited their last test. And for me, it's all about expectations. If we are in this situation in the spring and I allow you to forfeit your test, then what's your expectation coming into the fall? That we're just going to waive that test. And so we held our expectations high from day one. We're going, another example, we have a school district here. It's I think right now the 5th largest in the nation is the Las Vegas school district. It's called Clark County. And they waived 4th quarter grades last year, and we did not. And because we're not a part of that district. And so we took a lot of criticism for still counting the students' grades for their platforms. And you know what? Our families got on board because they knew that we were counting the grades, and everybody pulled together and got those kids doing their work. And we took our iReady test, and we still showed phenomenal growth. So you can still grow students in the online world, especially if you hold the expectations. And the issue with going into it as the leaders of the schools with this attitude of, oh, it's not going to be successful, is exactly that. It's not going to be successful. But if you go into it with like, we're going to give you everything we can, and we're here for you, and we've got you, and but we also expect this of our students because we're going to keep them educated, then the community gets on board with that more so than you would think. And so definitely hold your expectations. Commit today that you're going to hold those expectations, but you're also going to back those expectations with as much support and tools and resources as you can get into their hands to make them successful. So iReady is a great tool. It is kind of pricey. We usually write grants for that tool, which is why I know that Array Global is partnering with some companies that do similar assessments at a more affordable cost. I would also I put the other 2 as examples, Reading Wonders and Springboard, just as an example of our core instruction. Look at your core curriculum. Many of them already have online tools and resources. I've been in some of your schools, and so I know that you're utilizing programs that already sometimes have online tools. It's that your teachers may not already be utilizing them to the maximum capacity that they could be. So I think that that's a great place to start, is the curriculum you're already purchasing. Go find out what tools they back online. When I see many of you putting into chats and questions, Pearson, what can I do with Pearson? Pearson is a huge, reputable company that has a ton of online tools and resources. So please go right to your core instruction and see what they have available. Because Springboard, as an example, that's what we use throughout secondary, 6th grade through 12th grade for ELA and mathematics. They have a whole online component. The kids can type right into it, and teachers can give them feedback on there. So tons of resources that you may not know you're already purchasing. Now let's go into supplemental programs. Again, these are all just examples. The list could go on and on. So Turnitin, we'll go kind of quickly through these. Turnitin is a writing tool that allows you to give feedback to your students. Reflex Math is for math fluency. Canvas is for online teaching. There's digital libraries online, such as Myon. We do our whole library online, so students have access to books without having to have a physical book in their hands. Moby Max, Accelerated Reader, etc. And then a couple more, this is especially for my primary teachers out there, KG through second grade maybe, things like Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle allows you to take any video, so as Dr. Jacob was just talking about your teachers filming themselves, you could take that video, pop it into Edpuzzle, and add interactive elements such as polls. You can add layers on top of it, and it's super easy. You don't have to have a videography background in order to use tools like that. Quizzes, which is online quiz tools. Kahoot, which allows students to remote in with their phones or their iPads or whatever device and answer questions as you're going through. It's a great formative instruction tool that you can use within your classroom. And then just for the sake of time, I just want to show you really quick one more resource that we're going to make available to all of you. So let me just exit from here. There's a link right here. It says for more programs, click here. And where that takes you to is this spreadsheet. Thank you, Brittany Ives. She's my vice principal who put this together for my educators. And so we want to share this out with all of you as well. It has a ton of different online resources. It gives pricing. Forgive us if the pricing is not the same or if some of these are not available in all countries, but it is a place to start. It also gives you a description of what these do. And many of these were put together by people who have primary hearts as well. And so we are a K-12 school, and for that reason, these resources span K through 12 focuses. So please look through these because it goes on and on. It's pages and pages of various online resources, what they do and how you can utilize them within your classroom. Many of them also have step-by-step guides included. So we want to offer that as a free resource to all of you. And again, thank you for my team at Pinecrest Cadence and Brittany for leading the charge on that and being so willing to share. That's what I love about education, when educators come together and they're willing to share those resources. Let's go through. I put this one on here as an example of a single login resource. This is especially important for some of our primaries. We have a tool called Clever, and it allows you to have a QR code for your students so you don't even have to memorize long logins, and it allows you to drop all of their different tools in one spot. So I have a son, he's 7, and he was in grade 2 last year as this pandemic began. And so he was able to go through Clever and all of his programs pop up on the screen. So Google Classroom, Zoom, all of these you can link right to that program. And he has a QR code, which I actually keep right on the back of my cell phone so that we always have it with us because that's just easy for us to know where our QR code is. And he just shows it and all of his resources pop up. So it's a fantastic tool for that.
And for younger students who don't want to remember, 5 different usernames, 5 different passwords, they don't have to with this. That's the point.
Yeah, it's a great resource, and families don't get so lost in all the different tools you're using. Have a landing spot for those tools. These are examples of different platforms you could use for remote live instruction. Some of this will be accessibility. My school personally, we use Zoom. The reason we use Zoom is for a multitude of reasons. We're able to use their student logins in order to allow them into the rooms. We can have breakout sessions to address some of their individual needs. We can address them in the chat. We can annotate and bring up whiteboards. But there are many strengths to many of the ones that you see on here. So it's a matter of what's available to you and how to do that. So that's how we are accomplishing remote live instruction. The students are literally Zooming right into their teachers' classrooms. We want to present a few ideas with staying connected with the community. So especially parents, those who maybe don't have the proper tools. A few ways though is we need to remember, like with all of this remote live instruction and how great it is when teachers get to connect with their students in any way, shape, or form. We also need to remember that the bulk of that is going to be instruction. So what about our students who are full virtual and they don't actually get time to just talk? My mommy heart really struggled with this because I have one child. He's an only child. And this has been really difficult because he is a social butterfly. So when you see your child lose all of his soccer team, his Boy Scouts, all of these different activities, it's very difficult. So I work with such an amazing team who has that heart too. And they came up with this idea for digital recess. So we literally had a time at 3 o'clock each afternoon, or at least 1 to 2 times a week when they could get on with their grade level. And we had a theme, so it'd be show and tell, or tell us about your favorite thing you've done over the pandemic, or show us a project you're doing at home, or show us this talent that you have. And they could get on during that time. And then we gave them time to just be kids. We were in there to make sure we moderated, because sometimes topics can go awry, but just let them talk to one another and interact. Don't forget that element, especially if you're full virtual. Allow them to connect with their peers in a more free flow platform. Live online parent meetings. I do my parent meetings just like this. I show them the slides, I walk them through it, I give them the chance to write questions in the chat. Don't leave your parents out. Take them through virtual tours of your classrooms. If classrooms look different this year, or think about your KG parents' hearts who want to just go and see everything in their kid's classroom, and maybe you can't allow that. Give them a tour. Show them what their environment's going to look like. Dr. Jacob, on virtual assemblies?
Yeah, like you were saying, Jessica, focusing on the students and their making sure that they're engaged. I mean, this is a very, very difficult time for families and for children, that they're cooped up in their houses. They're not getting out. They're not interacting very many. So what we did in our school district is every other week we would have some motivational speaker come on. They would first talk to our teachers, because it was even more stressful for our teachers to have this whole new learning process. They would present to our teachers for an hour, and then they'd get on and present to families and students. And they were highly motivated and just there to really kind of uplift the spirits of our students. You know, some other things that we did too in our city is that we did some activities around town where they were socially distanced. So around Easter time, and I know many of you don't celebrate Easter, but you know what it is. And so we had an Easter egg hunt around town in cars. So it was kind of we called it a road rally. So they would get in their families and they'd go around and they'd have to take a picture with something that was in the town that was part of that scavenger hunt. So it's kind of a scavenger hunt, and many of you probably understand what a scavenger hunt is, but we were really trying to not just focus on providing quality education, but really trying to help them boost their spirits, because it was a very, very difficult time for all of us. And for us as administrators, I know for me, that's what kind of made it even more, it made it more enjoyable, because we tried to be a little bit of be creative and engaging with all of our families and students. So some other things that you guys could think about.
Yeah, and we would love to hear your ideas as well. So again, please share in the chats the various platforms that you're on right now. If you have other ideas and ways to stay connected, we would love to hear and steal some of those from you as well. Because we have such incredible educators. I'm sure many of you saw it. I know Dr. Frano yesterday was sharing an idea from BISC where they went and did virtual graduations, or I'm sorry, home graduations. And they dressed up and they went to the homes, and the students got to culminate. And so just those personal touches that you're putting on, they're just so impressive, and they make a world of difference with letting your students and families still feel connected to their school community. So thank you in advance for anything you're sharing, that I'm going to take your ideas back to my own school. We would like to also just take a moment to go into some of the resources that we provide, because this is a very crucial time for professional development, for training your staff. We're facing this in our own schools, how to train our staff on maybe platforms that we've never even experienced ourselves. It truly, the teachers have become the expert, which is something we've talked a lot about.
I would agree. I look forward, as we go back to school, to roundtabling with a lot of our teachers, with all the teachers that I can get together that I know, because they've had to work out so many things, talking about what worked, you know, last year at the end, what absolutely didn't work, and what should we move forward with. We need to hear from them and give them a voice on how we can support them. We can't leave them out of that, for sure.
Some of the resources we provide to help support these things. Well, first, our mission, we serve students, educators, and leaders by providing quality products and engaging professional development. So that's definitely where our heart is. We're going to walk you through a few of those programs now so that you can explore. And of course, if we can be of any service, I know we kind of went through some of those tools and resources fast, but our hope is to put those tools in your hands so that you'll have access to them afterwards. So certainly go back through the slides once we share it out with this email list and utilize those tools to the max. So at Epicenter, we focus on a few different things. Certified instructors, so all of our Epicenter instructors that we're continuing to add to our company, they reach the highest standards. They have the heart that for education, they have the heart for teachers, for students, and for just making it better. We're all like-minded in those ways. We certified programs. We're not going to back a program or frankly partner with people. This is why we're partnered with Array, because we believe in what they stand for, but we're not partnering with companies if they are not meeting the expectations that is truly quality and doesn't waste your time. That's something that's so important to us, is that we value your time, because it's so limited. And so that's what programs we back and that we offer are going to get you what you need in and out. And we're not going to, waste a lot of time, energy, or your school resources on it, because we're educators and we know how limited those are. And then certified products. And so as we continue to build, we have a lot of educators who have such unique ideas and inventions and things like that. And so Epicenter education certified products will be ones that we feel are useful for today's instruction. Now, when you look at our program offerings, we have created series. Again, this goes back to not wanting to waste your time. We have created these series and really honed them down to 3 to 6 hour workshops or online platforms that you can get usable tools right from each one. So every single course that we offer comes with a resource pack of things that you can duplicate right within your school and use them immediately. It's definitely, again, our goal not to send you through miles and miles of reading textbooks, but rather what do you need today and how can we get those tools to you to be the most usable. As you finish each of these series, each icon you see here currently is a course offering of 4 courses. And as you finish those 4 courses, you receive a certification in that area. So fundamentals or graphic design or technology, you'll receive certification in that area through Epicenter Education. This is something that we feel is so important right now, and that is these teaching and administrator competency pathways. So here's why. As we go to many schools across the world and even in our own country, teachers are choosing to go through more non-traditional routes to get into education, meaning many of them are not certified. And I know some of your schools have teachers who are not certified, or you're starting to put rules in place by which you require certification. But what is certification, right? So in the past, we think very one track. It must be through a university and this and all of this. Well, university, as we all know, takes a lot of years and money to get those certifications. And so if you're gonna hire teachers who are not certified, let us put them through a crash course for you. Let's get them the lesson planning ideas, how to engage students, classroom management. Let's get them the real tools that, let's face it, many of us didn't even learn in university. And let's get those to them quick and affordable so that when a teacher has received that seal of the teaching competency pathway, they have taken a selection of courses from us that allow them to translate their current skill set into the educational world. Same with the administrative leadership competency pathway. If you're an administrator and you're not licensed, come through our courses. Let us share real usable ideas for you to be successful in that role. Let's all help each other with that. So these are pathways that we're excited about.
We also offer certified, internationally certified accomplished teacher certification and accomplished administrator certification. And what these are, to back up, we do not feel that teachers are recognized enough or have enough ways to show that they are a notch above, that they are your cream of the crop. So we are partnered with Array Global Services to provide these certifications. If you have a teacher who is just at the top of your list and doing so well for students, this is a golden seal for them. They go through a process with us, and are verified by Array Global and earn this very distinguished certification.
Yeah, so this is, you know, some of your countries might have like a national boards program or some sort of national certification for that program. This is at the international level. So definitely bringing those teachers up to that next level and being able to honor and recognize them in partnership with Array Global on that. This is, I put this here, but you can explore it on our website. We do have a commercial that kind of shows the breadth of programs that we offer at Epicenter Education. So you can play this once you get access to the slides after today's presentation.
Well, I think Dr. Ray and I already talked a little bit about the services that Array Global provides, and we just wanted to make sure that you're aware that we are here to help you in any phase or any part of the program that your school is in. If you need some targeted help in setting up a plan for returning back to school, we have some excellent consultants that can work with you on that. If you are a school that's not even opened yet, we can help you setting up your facilities and getting your curriculum in place. If you're interested in our accreditation services, we'd love to have you part of our family, our accreditation family, so we can continually maintain that relationship with you. Because I loved what Jessica and Gemma said about relationships. That's what our focus is. We want to be involved with you. We want to know who you are, and we want to be able to help you become a strong school so you can provide a quality education for each student that in turn will strengthen your community, that will also strengthen your country, that our ultimate goal is to focus and strengthen our world, and that's what we really want to do. Another great thing that we have that you might be interested in is we do a certification process. So if your school provides some kind of specialty program like STEM or STEAM, we could help you get ready for that certification process to provide some quality special programs that you may have. We also, and I think we talked about this a little bit, Jessica talked about it, we have our own external assessment program. It's called Tree Test. And we wanted to do this specifically for our schools because we know that some of those external assessments can be very, very expensive, but we wanted to make sure that we could provide something that was feasible, that would provide quality data, that could drive your school improvement process, to drive your differentiation. So every student was receiving a quality education. So yeah, there's just a lot of great services. Please get onto our website, look at our consultants and all the different services that we have. Get onto our Facebook page, and again, reach out to us, and we can help you out in any way that we possibly can.
And now you get the paid advertisement. You got this for free, but we want to encourage you, if you're interested in working with Array Global. Of course, at the basis of all of our work is our accreditation process, and we're currently having wonderful responses from several countries for schools that would like to be accredited with us. We believe that the kinds of opportunities such as you've heard today are really the goal of what we're trying to do. If you currently are not accredited by any agency and you would like to pursue accreditation with us, the information for how you apply is on our website. We also accept transfer accreditation. If you would like to transfer your accreditation from another agency to ours, at this time we are not creating a transfer fee, and we accept it as you bring it to us. For instance, if your current accreditation lasts for 2 more years and you have demonstration of that, we would accredit you with those 2 years remaining, and you would be following our processes. I want to thank Jessica and Gemma especially. You have really inspired me today. Kind of like I said earlier, a lot of it depends on our attitude, because I've been reading the comments and the questions that have come in, and there are a lot of questions about attitude and how parents feel or how we feel and so forth. But the real key to making any of this successful is how we as educators respond. If we respond positively with the best information that we have, we will go a lot further. I wish we weren't in this situation. I wish that next month all of a sudden schools would be open and we'd be back to business as we're accustomed to it. But I do believe that through this crisis, we've been able to think, as Jessica and Gemma have discussed today, we've had to think creatively. What can we do in light of the situation in which we find ourselves? And maybe I'll close with kind of an illustration of how we look at things. I read once of the wonderful about the wonderful person, the Catholic nun, Mother Teresa, who worked in the slums of Calcutta, India. And she worked at the medical clinic where every day when they opened the clinic, they had a long line of people to come in and get medical help. And they worked throughout the day until they closed. And sometimes at the end of the day, there were just as many people waiting as there were at the beginning because they had done what they could. And a reporter who I think probably thought he was going to be really smart, he went up to Mother Teresa and he said, "Mother Teresa, don't you get discouraged? Because when you close at the end of the day, you have as many people waiting probably as there were at the beginning of the day." And she stopped him in mid-sentence and said, "Sir, you don't understand. God has not called me to be successful. He has called me to be faithful." And I challenge all of us as educators to be faithful to the task, difficult situation in which we find ourselves, but to be faithful to what we have been trained to do. It's all about what can we do to help students. And at the end of the day, we don't get a lot of students who come and pat us on the back and say, "Thank you for changing my life." But our satisfaction comes in the sparkle that we see in their eyes, because we know we might not feel that we've been successful, but we know we've been faithful. So I challenge us all to remember that. Let's be faithful to the task which we have been given. We're giving you tools the best we can. And so thank you for your time today. It's been a wonderful opportunity. And I'm so thrilled that we have Epicenter as one of our partners. And Dr. Jake has listed Tree Test and Fayday LMS system. Those are just a couple of the others. And I'm sure there will be others down the road, but we're doing all we can to help schools be successful. And you will know you're successful when your students are learning. That's what it's all about. So thank you so much for your time today. And we will meet again. Remember, August 8, 15, 22, and 29 for a similar workshop together. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Ray. We have a couple different things. I included in the chat box a link to a survey. We want to get your thoughts and feedback on that. Please click on that link, go to it, fill that out so we know how which direction we want to go with further workshops. But like Dr. Ray said, we have workshops on the 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th. And I know it seems kind of late at 9 o'clock at Saudi Arabia time, but everyone seems to like that. And we still have people joining. I think there's some questions that people want to ask, and I've been keeping track of some of the questions out there. Are we ready, Jessica and Gemma, to answer some of these questions? Did we lose them?
No, we're still here. I just muted myself. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sorry
well,
about that.
Yeah, if people are still joining on, so I figured we'd ask some of the questions that they've listed in the chat, and then maybe we can open it up if you're okay with that.
Yes, of course.
All right. One of the ones that kept coming over and over again is, and I know we talked about this because I talked about it a little bit, but how do we really engage students at the lower grade levels? What ideas and thoughts do you have on that?
Yeah, so a couple different things that schools here are doing. It really depends on what platform you're utilizing. So for instance, some of our schools here have decided in KG and grade 1 that they're going to do the half-day model. And that way, just for those grade levels, that way they do get, if you're able to do any live instruction at all, they're able to get every single day access to those students so that they can really kind of settle into what school is all about. These KG students that are coming to school for the first time and they're going to school online, it's difficult. And so that's kind of, it starts with exactly which model you choose first of all. So in schools that are mostly doing virtual, it's going to be, to me, the most engaging is going to be the teacher. So as much as you can try to be live for your students, I think, and again, it's going to fall anywhere on the spectrum depending on your resources. So I think that the most engaging is going to be the teacher live, where they are able to connect with their students, able to ask them questions, able for the student to hear their voices and those subtle nuances of communication back and forth, and learn how to ask questions and all of these things. To me, that's going to be your best option if you're in the virtual world. If you're in the virtual world and you can't do live instruction, then I would encourage you, much like you had brought up, Dr. Jacob, to videotape yourself. Again, the more that it is you connecting with your students, the more powerful. That's why you got into teaching. And then use your tools and resources and, you know, other videos and platforms that people have made as a support to that, because they need to hear from you, whether it be live or videotaped. As much as you can get yourself into their homes, the better, in my opinion. And then even if you can't do those live instructional sessions, try to have live office hours for them too, where they can come and connect. A lot of our primary teachers, when we were doing office hours, okay, we just stopped sharing, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of our teachers, as they were doing office hours as opposed to live instruction, they were doing story times during those office hours. So it became a Q&A, but at first, they were remembering the little things you need to do with your students, like a story time, like a magic school bus video, and engaging their students that way. So just don't forget that even though we're using tools that are very much tailored to adults, like Zoom, we can use them in kid-friendly ways. We can still talk to our students as children, even though they're not with you physically. And we can use videos that are aimed at students, but try to just be present for them as much as possible. That's my main thing. I know questions came up for what we call specialists, so PE, art, music, these types of things. Music is difficult depending on your guidelines. So for instance, here, our current guidelines are that we're not allowed to have brass instruments or woodwind instruments. We're not allowed to do choir the same way that we've used. Those are very direct rules that have been placed on us. So for instance, in music, we are increasing our percussion. We're pulling out buckets and sticks, and we got a grant a few years ago to buy some pianos. So we definitely have our keyboards, little like $100 keyboards. So we are taking music from a different approach. In our elementary level as well, or primary levels, we found some great, and I can actually put a link, maybe I'll put a link into that same online resources. Some of my team just found these great little music tools that are actually made for individual students for use during this time. So they're just simple little, tools that they can use for music that becomes their little Ziploc baggie, and they're getting to still learn some of the rhythm and things like that. In PE, again, it's gonna kind of depend on your guidelines. You can do, PE logs where they get some of their minutes at home for things that they can't do at school. But pull out games that are done a little bit more socially distanced, have your rows and activities where they can still, do their laps, and you just gamify some of the things that they can do. And if you're allowed to still have them free play, like some sports here are allowed, like soccer, things that they're not going to be touching with their hands, or I guess football, and maybe in some countries, depending on what you call that. But just think of sports where they don't necessarily have to touch the manipulatives with their hands. And they can still do a lot of those team sports. They just may have to wear some sort of cloth mask or something while they do that.
Well, and I think, Jessica, too, that some of these questions were about how do they do that when they're totally virtual.
Oh, thank you.
And so some of those things I know with music in my school, my music teacher actually did a Zoom call like this, and they were able to get on and perform one at a time for each other. And same with art. They would do their art class, the teacher would do the art class, and then the students would do their art project or whatever else, take pictures of it, make a recording of it. And then you said what a lot of teachers are doing for PE is having that log where parents would sign off on it. I even knew of PE teachers that were recording having students record things and upload them and send them. So there's a lot of different ways. And like a lot of people said in the chat box today, I was really impressed how they said, we just need to be as creative as we possibly can to come up with the solutions for the situation is at hand. Because we do have a lot of limitations that we're dealing with, and we just have to be as creative as possible. And a lot of good comments too about how this is going to really change education. It's really going to stretch people. And that's kind of exciting too. Right now, it's not so exciting, but in the future, it's really going to change people's thoughts and thinking of how we're going to move forward with education when we move totally back to normal.
Yeah, exactly. And we had a lot of our teachers online as well in the spring. Our PE teacher utilized resources, and I'll make sure that they're included in the list we gave. But they had a resource that the students would pull up a video, and it just had like repetitions, and they could get their PE minutes that way by following along with these like aerobic exercises. So my son was just here in our living room doing his PE class right along with the teacher who was motivating them by commenting on their form. And I love how you're doing that. And, you know, and then for art, there's great resources like videos that take you step by step through illustration and things like these follow along videos. They're free. They're all over the place utilizing that, or just simple projects. And then for us, our landing spot for specialists was a Google Classroom. So they had a Google Classroom where they got on and all of their specialist assignments were on there, and they would link to their videos, or they would link to a video about different instruments, and then they would have a virtual quiz that they could take, or a follow-up Google Forms that they use for their quizzing a lot of times too, to formative assess them along the way and make sure that they're understanding their lessons. So drop it all into something like Google Classroom so that it's all in one place for them.
And you know, along with that, Google Classroom and all the other tools that a lot of teachers are having to learn, there are a lot of cool comments about their teachers need to be trained. They need to learn these different processes to really be effective. And I echo that. It is so important to do teacher training, and we can help with that. Epicenter can help with that. That you need to reach out and you need to start really training your staff members. I mean, this is one way that you can get some information out, is doing these free workshops that we have. But teacher training is so important for you administrators and teachers. Look out there and start learning and seeing what you need to do.
You know, and I would encourage countries that have heavy access to social media, go join the groups, the Facebook groups. There are so many teachers swapping STEM ideas, PE ideas. They're all over the place. We're definitely happy to support schools however we can as well. But something Gemma touched on earlier that I would like to just reiterate is give your teachers time to talk to one another. Many of them have already sorted through some really great tools. You have your go-getters in your group who figured some of this out in the spring. Let them talk to each other and swap those ideas as well. And we will continue to echo that it's just all about us coming together and being open.
You know, one thing we didn't talk so much about is families that don't have any access to the internet. Families that the schools closed down, there's no internet. How do we deal with that? The students that can't do those virtual classes.
Yeah, we definitely had a few students in that case. We have homelessness at our school, so students who literally don't have a steady home. They're jumping from, you know, hotel to hotel or whatever the case is. So for the most part, if you can work out some of those things as far as helping them, connecting them with community resources, if you have access to those, that was very helpful. So where we might have started at, you know, 15% who truly had no access, through connecting them with the right resources, we were able to get it down to just a handful, of students who truly could not access that. At that point, we had staff members assigned to those families. So assigned directly to getting the packets that they need, being the liaison between the teacher and that student. Again, all the families need to know is that somebody is still there caring about the growth of their child. So for the ones that you get it down to this many students truly don't have access, can you allow them in the building because it's so few of them? Can you allow them just on your property because you have access to Wi-Fi? Are there mobile hotspots in your community that have free Wi-Fi that you can point them towards? And then at the end of the day, if they truly can't, assign them to a staff member and make that staff member responsible for being the liaison between them and the school to get them whatever resources. We have workbooks, we have all these things too. Just let them know that you're still there and care about their child's growth, and that goes a long way.
And we had the same issue in my school district. We probably had 20% that don't have internet or don't even have cell service because we're up in the mountains. And so what we would have to do is we'd have to regularly deliver paper-based material. So we'd get copies of what the teachers provided in the classroom, physically deliver it to the home. And when we deliver that, we'd pick up the work that has been completed. Another thing that we sometimes forget, and we had to do this with some of our students, is Zoom and Google Hangouts. You might not be able to get on as a video, but most everyone has a phone or a phone line, so they can call in and at least listen to the lesson that's taking place. But I really echo, Jessica, the part that you talked about staying connected. In my school district, we required families to be connected twice every single week. At the very beginning of the week, we would contact them, see what they needed as administration. Later on in the week, one of their teachers would have to connect with them, because that is so important, not just for the academic component, but again, just to maintain that connection between the school and the family, and making sure that their needs are being met as best as they possibly can.
I see a lot of questions coming about, and I know we've touched on it a little bit, but what about all the families who just refuse online learning? Like, again, to me, it's just about maintaining your expectations, because they may refuse it because, like I think somebody brought up earlier, it's not familiar to them. They don't understand it. It's just not what they signed up for. But maintaining that expectation, and frankly, at that point, you kind of put the responsibility on the parent, because if you're just going to flat out refuse to utilize the resources that we're providing, then really you're only putting your child at a disadvantage. And so it's just about keeping that communication open, and always, even if they refuse it, your job is to just remain supportive, keep the tools in their hands, and either they're going to come around or they're going to see really quickly that their child is starting to fall behind. And so they really have to make that decision at that point. And that's where we're encouraging you all to allow yourselves to just be okay with parents need to make that decision for their children. And you're going to be there no matter what. Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. Just be there for them.
Another good question that we have, Jessica and Gemma, is how do we ensure that students remain engaged when they're doing virtual learning? So they're not at home messing around on their computer, watching YouTube videos, and playing video games.
We require cameras on. So I know that some may not be able to join via computer. You can kind of work those things out with the few families that you may have in those situations. For us, we require cameras on. We require them to be, it's right in our handbook, actually, that they have to have their camera on, they have to be dressed appropriately, seated, they can't be laying in their bed, all of these types of things. So set that tone from day one. This is what we expect from you. You're in an appropriate seat, you have your school top on or something appropriate, and you have to be visible to the teacher. And then from there, it's about the teacher, especially knowing their grade level and how often they need to make sure they're engaging the student. It's no different than if they're sitting in your classroom. If in a classroom, I would have engaged my students and made sure I did a formative check-in, a thumbs up check-in, or who understands it, show me your level, all of these types of things. Go ahead.
All calls.
Yeah, all calls, like anything you would have done in classroom when they're sitting at their desk to make sure that they're all paying attention to you. Do that. Just because they're sitting at home doesn't mean they can't give you the thumbs up, or they can't, you know what I mean? So call on any student at any time. Like at my classroom, when I was teaching, we didn't raise our hands. That wasn't a thing. You don't raise your hands. Like there's times where I'm going to say, like, who has a question? Let's talk it through. But every other time I'm calling on you whenever I want. So you better be ready. You know what I mean? So it's like, just engage them, make sure it's grade level appropriate. Don't go through these long 15-minute, lessons that are KG students without taking a break to see where you're at. And let them share their ideas just as if they were sitting on the little carpet right in front of your feet. Let them share those ideas. They need that voice. They have no voice right now without you giving them one.
And I know that there's some cultural things that come into play here and some other administrative things. To have a camera on in some of these countries for girls is not acceptable. But there are other ways that administrators and teachers can figure that out. The person could still be watching, maybe not have their camera on, but give the thumbs up virtually.
Yes.
So there are other ways that make sure that they're engaged, or maybe even have a parent sign off saying that Noor, she followed the lesson today and she was engaged and she was following your expectations. I also saw a couple different comments about you have to have high expectations and you have to communicate those expectations from the very, very start. And so each school and each country that you're working in are going to have different expectations. And so you need to outline those. And like Jessica and Gemma were saying, you need to be collaborative in that, work together in coming up with those. When Jessica made the recommendation of a district that waived all the grades for one quarter, that worked for that district. That doesn't mean that it's going to work for your district. It's not something that she decided in her school. It's not something that we decided. We still graded everything. So you have to come up with a solution that's going to work best for you.
And I think to kind of go along with that as well, the whole grading thing, again, it's all about like your approach with it. And again, that's where if you decide you're not going to grade anything, and I see a lot of people also, talking about like school choice. Well, now they're not going to pay for our school because they don't feel like it's effective as it was before. This is where I would encourage you as leaders to celebrate every bit of growth. This is why, in my opinion, you need grades. This is why, because yeah, they could go for free down the road and then they don't have any expectations and there's no grading and all this stuff. But the minute you start putting up, like, look at the growth during the pandemic, because that's what we did. We would have received a 5-star rating. That's what we do in our state, is a star rating system for our schools. We would have had the highest rating with our growth at the end of this past year through the pandemic. And so all of my schools, elementary, middle, and high school, would have been 5-star rated. And that we are now able to use as a tool. And we are out in the community telling people we are committed to keeping your children educated through the pandemic. And I tell my parents very candidly, during this time, if you want the school that's just going to pass your kid without any expectations, we're not that school. And you know what? You may lose a few of them. And that means that they don't align with your mission anyway. But you're going to gain a ton of other families. Our wait lists have expanded. They haven't gone down. They've expanded because now families who don't have anything for their children, who took it for granted before, are like, oh my goodness, find me a school that's actually going to keep my children educated. And so you may lose some, and you're going to have to accept that. But if you can get out there and market, and this is something that we consult with schools on all the time, is marketing. If you can use those taglines to market your school, we are going to keep these kids educated, we're going to give them every tool and every resource, then you're going to find a lot of new families who are looking for exactly that, because the neighborhood school might not be providing it. So market your expectations, because while you may find some criticizing, you're going to find many who actually want that.
Yeah, I think that's great. Especially talking about which schools students could go to, because Sokar made a good comment that in some countries, and I think a lot of your countries, and in the United States, virtual learning is so new, and we're losing students even in public schools, where parents are saying, well, I'm just going to homeschool my students. You know, what we would recommend is that schools do the least restrictive environment based upon the health codes that you are providing. So if your public schools are going to be able to open up and provide face-to-face instruction, maybe with some circumstances put in place, some rules put in place, try to do that as much as you can. But I would encourage people to be as flexible as they possibly can to deal with this. The good thing is that I think what research is saying mostly is that this coronavirus is not affecting children as much, and so that's a positive about this. I think everyone would be probably playing a different tune if they knew that students were getting ill and passing away too. So it's pretty tough situation. You know, I had a good comment here from Jod in our comments. He said one good way to monitor if students are learning if they can't use their cameras is to use an exit slip. I thought that was a brilliant idea. Just really, really good thing. I had another question, Jessica and Gemma, maybe you can help with this. How much time should be spent in each session for a virtual class?
You know, I'm so glad that that question came up. I especially get to tackle this question because I am the school administrator of a K through 12. And so that's definitely not a one size fits all. And so for us, I think that you work with the leaders and teachers of those grade levels to determine what is grade level appropriate. So how long should your sessions be? That's a great question. It's no different than saying, how long should my direct instruction be in a normal day? How long can I keep a 5-year-old engaged compared to how long can I keep a 15-year-old engaged? Those questions do not change whether you're in the online platform or not. In fact, I found that with digital tools, you can usually keep them engaged even longer. And so if you properly combine these digital tools in a manner that suits you know, your age level, in some cases, you can keep them engaged longer than when they're sitting down on the carpet in front of you. And so for us, where we've kind of settled in on our 2 to 3 hour sessions in our primary school in the morning. So we're breaking it up for English language arts and mathematics. So reading and mathematics are going to be the core of their live instruction in the morning. They're going to infuse some science and social studies into those time periods. But then most of the rest of their afternoon is going to be working through the virtual platforms that we offer them and some of those projects that we offer them. So we found 2 to 3 hours, however you want to break that up, of live, come into the class, let's talk, let's learn our lesson, let's practice our phonemic awareness and all of these things is a great kind of landing spot. But as you move into intermediate, you're going to see it go to more like 4 hours. And for our secondary students, which for us is grades 6 through 12, they actually have to log into the beginning of each one of their periods, just as if they were going to a 7-period schedule or a block schedule in some of their cases. So they have to log in at the beginning of every single class. The teacher is taking attendance. So whether you're live in person or you're at home, that counts as your attendance. The teacher is going to go through their lesson, set the norms for when they can ask questions and do checks for understanding. And then when it comes time to do their independent practice, they can stay on with the teacher to make sure that they can ask questions if they want, or the teacher can release them at that time to finish their work independently. So, but yeah, the expectation is every period they're going to follow, because if we switch phases and now we're allowed to come back to school full time, everybody's now just used to their schedule. They're used to their teacher. They're used to that 7-period schedule. So that's why having a model that could work no matter if you're in school or out of school could be the most seamless option if you have those tools available.
All right. Well, thank you, Jessica and Gemma. We know we had an hour and a half of some great information. I know more questions are coming in. I will post our survey that people can take. And then also we have some time for workshops. And as Dr. Ray said, August 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th. You're also welcome to contact us in our email that I've included. And then also Jessica and Gemma would be happy to help with any professional development needs. So thank you again, Jessica and Gemma. Dr. Ray, do you have any final words before we close?
No, it's been wonderful, the participation, the information which has been given, and you probably have two of the finest minds in education who have been presenting to you today, Jessica and Gemma. So thank you so much, and we'll meet again. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care, and everyone work hard.